emotion. The topic that we're going to discuss briefly really relative to how we live our lifestyles, particularly vacation and consumption in this ever-changing economy. We're going to talk about breaking chains when debt becomes a master. So that's the topic we're going to discuss tonight. So let me begin tonight with a simple question. How much of your future income is already spoken for? I know that's a hard question. For many of us, our debt is a large part of our lifestyle and causes a lot of anxiety within our life. Think about it for a second. Before your paycheck even hits, the mortgage is waiting. Your car note is waiting. Your credit card payments are waiting. As a way of quietly becoming a master. And for that reference, we're going to look real quickly at a scripture tonight. We're going to look at Proverbs 22:7. It's a familiar verse for many people. I'll read it from the New International Version. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is also a slave to the lender. I think this is super powerful for us in this time as we think not only with our mindset, but how we live. The rich ruling over the poor, and the borrower living in this consumer-based economy where they're just constantly pushing us to spend dollars. They're enslaving us in a certain way. And are we aware of it? Are we conscious of it? Maybe mildly, but I think we maybe practice avoidance and we don't look at it head on. Hopefully, I'll be able to give you some tools that you can use to help combat this principle, because really it's a truth, it's a principle. So how do we translate that scripture for today? Every dollar we borrow today creates a decision that we have to make tomorrow. The verse is not saying that every form of borrowing is sinful. The scripture is just speaking to the weight of obligation. So when debt accumulates, there's a couple things that result as a byproduct of debt. And you see them here on the screen. Pressure begins to build. You're reduced in the flexibility or the options that you have available to you when you have a lot of debt. Diminished margin. Margin is just the amount of money you have between your obligations and your income. So your margin is reduced. And then because of all these other factors, you have emotional strain because you're in this position where you feel like you don't have options, where you feel like you're working just to pass those dollars on to someone else or to someone you have a debt with. So when you owe, again, your options just begin to narrow and the future decisions are partially made for you. And that's why stewardship may include understanding what the cost of debt actually is. So many people normalize debt simply as a lifestyle, right? We look at this thing as debt is often used to fund all of the things that I have here on screen. So your convenience, your consumption. If someone, we used to call it keeping up with the Joneses. I don't know what they call it now, but social media has proliferated the idea if someone has something or that standard of wealth, we compare ourselves to it and we must acquire those things to feel validated and to feel seen. And then we have lifestyle inflation as we look at a time now that globally there's a lot of unrest. As a country, we're at war. So the cost of goods has gone up significantly, particularly our energy, gas. So that's a big deal. That may be creeping into your margin, which is now costing you to increase in debt. So the challenge is not merely owing money. The challenge is when debt begins to control your peace, your choices, your career decisions, your level of generosity, and then your risk tolerance. Because usually when we're in these type of economic times, these are the ideal times to invest. This is where wealth is actually grown when you see economic downtimes. But if you have debt, you can't invest in acquiring assets. So that's why these things not only rob you of your present day, they eat into your future and the decisions that you can make. That is not just a financial issue. It's a freedom issue. So I want you to really let that sink in. It's not just a financial issue. It's a freedom issue. When your money is already committed, your future becomes less flexible. So how do we solve this? What solutions, Lionel, can you offer us to sort of break out of this cycle? So there's 3 ways that I'm going to highlight tonight that you can break out of this cycle. Let's talk about the first thing. The very first thing in solving any problem is always your awareness. You have to face the full number. The first step is clarity. Many people know that they have debt, but it's just sort of nebulous living in the background of their mind. They don't actually focus on it, so they don't know what's going on. They don't have the full picture. So here are the things that you can do. First, review not just your credit cards, but all types of loans. You want to look at your balance. You want to look at your interest rate. You want to look at what the minimum payment. And then we'll talk about adjusting yourself on putting yourself on your own payment schedule. And then you want to look at what your total monthly obligation is. So across all of the loans and debt that you have, what is that costing you monthly? What is the monthly obligation for your debt? So again, freedom is going to begin with the honesty part of it. You have to know what's going on in your financial picture in order to really diagnose the problem. You cannot strategically eliminate what you refuse to fully face and do the math on. So again, not just your credit cards, personal loans, what has become super popular right now, which doesn't show up on your credit report. And that's why people are taking advantage of them. The BNPLs, as they're called, buy now, pay later programs, things like Sezzle, Affirm. There's so many of them. Karma, I think, is one of them. You see them all the time. Whenever you have anything in a shopping cart anywhere, you see them pop up. Those are forms of debt that we have to be careful of because they're short-term debt. And if you don't fulfill the debt in the time period, the debt can then become aggressive. Student loans, your consumer debt. You want to make sure you're looking across all these things. The second step in this process is now getting alignment. So the first thing you got to do is stop borrowing for lifestyle. If it's a vacation, if it's entertainment, clothing, lifestyle-based debt is the worst type of debt because you're enjoying the experience now of whatever that is, whether it's the clothing or the vacation and all those things, but you're actually doing that on tomorrow's dollars. When tomorrow's obligations show up, you're still fighting a war on two fronts. You're fighting the war of yesterday as well as the war of today. So it's really a habit thing, right? So you want to ask yourself this key question: am I borrowing for necessity or am I borrowing to look like I don't have a problem? So this appearance thing, if you're borrowing to look like you're wealthy, that's a big problem. Borrowing for necessity, if it's in that specific situation, I know there's a lot of people who are unemployed right now, so you have to do what you have to do. But taking on debt in order to look like you are wealthy or look like you're not poor, it's on so many levels, it's not the right thing to do. So it becomes a debt cycle. So you want to make sure that you're aware of this and manage the behavior, because if you get into that cycle, it's very hard to break out of it. So debt freedom requires four main skills. Reduce lifestyle pressure. You have to focus on reducing your lifestyle pressure. You have to set boundaries for yourself of what you think your lifestyle should be. These should be internal things, not external things you're getting from social media, friends, and all those things. One that I practice a lot that has helped me a lot is delayed gratification. That's what has allowed me to invest, is delaying the gratification. When I had the windfalls or the large surplus of dollars, I would invest it into real estate, precious metals, expanding stock portfolio. All those things are things that I did. Insurance, life index, universal life insurance policies. All those are things that I did whenever I had surpluses of money in order to delay the gratification. Instead of, I remember one time I bought a property and I was showing my son around, and it was in the middle of the rehab, a property in Florida. We actually still own it. And I took him in. The place was still kind of dusty. Countertops weren't in. I think the cabinets were in. The flooring might have been done. I couldn't quite remember. It was in that renovation stage. And then he says to me, "Dad, how much did you spend on this house?" And I was like, the house was $265,000. And he's like, "You could have bought a Lambo." And I thought to myself, I was like, "Yeah, son, I could have bought a Lambo. But what will a Lamborghini do for me as far as, again, creating wealth for my entire family, having regular cash flow, having the appreciation of the asset itself, having the tax savings that ultimately that property bought me because it was a short-term rental. I did something called a cost segregation, which is bonus depreciation. And just by delaying my gratification, putting that money into something that wasn't sexy or fancy, it's still an asset that's helping our family today versus in my son's excellent wisdom buying the car for the same price. So that's just an example of how delaying gratification can ultimately build wealth. And then the essential part of all this is contentment. You have to know what is your level of satisfaction and be comfortable living in that space, and sometimes even reducing that space for the future gain or for the ability to live your lifestyle on a much bigger level because you actually can afford it at that particular time or phase of your life. So if spending behavior doesn't change, your debt payoff becomes just temporary relief. You'll pay bills off, and then you'll find yourself in a cycle where you've accumulated them. The third step is acceleration. You have to create a plan. There is no one size fit all method when it comes to paying down debt, but there is a right method that is for you. So I'm going to give you just 4 simple debt frameworks. You can Google any one of these just by the title that I have there in the brackets. And I'm sure you'll find tons of videos, even here on YouTube and social media where I'm broadcasting this now, as well as just Google searching or using AI. You'll find a strategy. And if you put your numbers in, it'll help you out. So here are the 4 frameworks. Attack the smallest balance first. That is called the snowball method. So let's say you have 6 bills and they're $500, $1,200, $2,500, and $8,000. You start with the $500, you pay that off, and then whatever payment, let's say it was $100 a month or whatever, then you add that on top of the minimum payment for the next bill, and then you pay that one off, and then you add both of those payments you were making. You continue to make them, but then you stack them on the third bill. That is called the snowball method. It's the way of gaining momentum. You start with the smallest, and then you roll those payments over so they become bigger and bigger payments as you begin to eat away at the larger debt. The avalanche method, that's a smart method to also take if it fits you, depending on the amounts that you actually owe. But that is the strategy of looking at which is the most expensive debt first, the highest interest rate, and then attacking that despite whatever the balance is. So if you have a credit card that's at 29.99, but your car note's at like 6 or 7%, or maybe you have a personal loan at like 15%, you attack the credit card first because that's the 29.9 that it has the highest cost of money. So you're paying down that cost of debt first, and you do the same thing though. Once you pay that off, whatever that payment was you're making, you continue to make that, but then you stack it on the next bill that has the next highest interest, and then it avalanches really quickly. It is a fast way to pay off your debt if you can get yourself on a accurate budget that allows you enough freedom and you have the extra cash flow. So if you have a really stable income right now, you're a high income earner, you have a lot of debt, I would say put yourself on a really acute, is probably the best word, budget that you can actually run your household. You have a little bit of money for lifestyle, but then you're dumping all your extra money into the highest cost debt first, and then you avalanche your way through the rest of the debt. So the next one we're going to talk about here is automatic extra principal or an extra payment. It's quite popular in the mortgage industries. A lot of lenders, particularly mortgage lenders, they'll have an extra payment feature that's just a button within your portal that you can just click on. So what is that exactly? My credit card is $1,200. My minimum payment may be something like $120 or something like that. And so I'm making an extra payment. You can do that every single month. You could pay the $200 instead of the $120, or you can pay that minimum payment and then double those. I would do it every other week. So if your minimum payment's $120 or something like that, you pay the $120 every time you get paid. So you're making 2 payments per month. So that is a way to automate the extra principal, and you just literally set it up within your account as an extra payment, and it just continues to roll in. That will pay down your principal faster, because typically any type of loan, credit card, car, home, any type of loan, the interest is always stacked on the front of the loan and the principal payment is usually on the back of the loan. So an extra payment will help you pay off the back end principal on a loan significantly quicker, which in turn is reducing the amount of interest that you're paying. So that becomes a positive cycle. Applying windfalls with intentionality. So what is that? Some people have tax returns coming up here. They may have already gotten it. Hopefully they didn't come to the beach with it. Having an extra, a bonus, a tax return, maybe a dividend that's paid from a stock or something like that. And then you're taking that extra money and paying it towards your debt. So it's an extra windfall, an extra source of income that may be coming in. And then you're just dumping all that directly on your debt. So those are four strategies I want to give you. And again, you could do some more research and get information about each one of those or whichever strategy you think might work best for your situation, and then tailor it to fit. So let's tie it back to stewardship. Every payment towards the principal will restore your future freedom, right? So every dollar you pay down is a dollar of your future peace. So let's just quickly review what we talked about this evening. Number one, you got to come face to face with the whole number. What is your cumulative amount of debt you have? Go through all of your accounts. It's going to be hard. I know you're going to go through some emotional pain as you go through this process, but you want to write out the totals for every single account, tally that, find out what that number is. Then stop financing to live your lifestyle. Live your lifestyle off of what you can afford in cash dollars, not in credit. Last step, build a plan to get out of it. I talked about the 4 different ways you can build a plan to get out of it. You can use the snowball method, you can avalanche, you can add extra payments, and any extra money you get, windfall, tax return, bonus at work, somebody gives you money who owed you some money from a long time ago and you forgot about it, whatever it is, you dump that on it. There's a bunch of other ways. People will talk about velocity banking. That's another one. If you have what they call a debt tool, home equity line of credit, a revolving line of credit, those are things that you can use to make chunk payments. And then you have your direct deposit from your wages sent directly into that line of credit, whether it's a HELOC or a regular line of credit. And then that reduces the daily balance, which reduces your daily interest payment because those are calculated daily. And then you just keep taking chunks out 2 or 3 times a year to pay off. That's it's a bonus strategy I'm throwing in there for you. You can look it up. It's called velocity banking. So a lot of different ways you can do this, but that last step, build a plan, stick to the plan, hold yourself accountable. If you need accountability, we are here to assist. We're the Minding Our Business Financial Academy. You can look in our description on any of our social media or YouTube platforms and join the community. We'll hold you accountable. We'll give you some more skills and tools and tips, and then just be around like-minded people who can help you stay motivated and give you some synergy towards meeting your goals. So just quickly, I want to ask you this question. Where might debt be limiting your freedom right now? I really want you to resonate with that because your why will be the catalyst for you to take action and get yourself out of this debt cycle, whether it's your cash flow, whatever it is. I want you to identify it. So we have all kinds of plans and templates, again, to assist you with the budget end of it, and then also to assist you with the debt payment. So if you begin to make adjustments now, 2026 can be an awesome year, even though we're going through some economic challenges, if you have a plan and you deploy it. So I want you to remember, debt may have your balance off today, but stewardship can help you reclaim your balance tomorrow. So again, my name is Lionel. Thank you for the time. We are here to serve you, and we'll continue with the stewardship and motion momentum. And then find us on the school website. You can join our free community there, and you can also find us on any of our social media platforms. So take care. Have a great night. Thanks for joining us at the MOB Academy. Now stop scrolling and go mind your business.